We walked through town, and after an obligatory stop at McDonald's, we're officially ready to begin hiking again. The alternate follows the highway out of town, and because of my distaste for walking with cars barreling by at 60+ miles per hour, we hitched to the dirt road where the traffic is much less frequent and much slower. Having Brandon, aka Storytime, around helped the shadeless miles go by faster, and we set up camp as night was falling. The next morning, I found an ugly little moth larva in my clothes bag, which was a nice reminder that living outside doesn't come without its challenges. In the afternoon, we were forced to stop our hike while some cowboys herded cattle. Cows on the CDT were nothing new, but a stampede of cows being corralled by 3 men on horseback and 6 dogs was some nice quality afternoon entertainment. Our water sources were once again scarce, and we stopped for water from a trough with a dead chipmunk in it. Luckily, the pipe was flowing and we didn't have to collect from the stagnant pool. The boys left the water source ahead of me, but I soon rounded a corner to find Brandon on the ground and Kid searching his bag for first aid items. As the tallest of the group, Brandon had whacked his head on a blowdown that crossed the trail at the perfect height to be out of sight when wearing a hat, and it gashed him pretty good. Luckily, we were able to patch it up and keep it clean, and determined he wouldn't need any additional medical attention, at least not until we got to Helena. In order to enjoy our time together, the boys often hiked behind me, since they were both faster, and if they went ahead, I might not see them until camp. Do my vlog, so you guys, you can, or you can add color commentary.
Okay. Well.
Or you can add color commentary. We left Anaconda 2 days ago? Was it 2 days ago?
Yes.
And we basically, Brandon and I got pasties on our way out of town. Those things are calorie dense, like 720 calories and one little fistful of food. They were all right. It needed cheese or salsa or both. Stopped at McDonald's to meet up with Josh. That was about a mile into our day. Trail goes right through Anaconda, so it's kind of you're tempted by town for a little bit while leaving. And then finally left McDonald's, and we were on the paved highway, and my rule is I can hitch paved highways, so we did that. Did about a 22-mile day of actual hiking. Not bad for starting at, like, I guess 1 mile we did earlier in the day. The rest we did probably afternoon. We ended up camping at, I don't remember where we camped. Where did we camp?
We camped on top of a random hill.
Oh yeah, we camped at the top of a climb in some thin trees that were not great for hanging food, so we slept with our food. I do not advise, but it worked out okay. And then we woke up yesterday morning and started our potentially 23 or 24 mile day to set us up to go into town on our 3rd day into Helena. And then we camped by a creek. There was some, like, we think snowmobilers dumped some trash. It's like old tarps and sleeping bags and like a cooler. That was a little creepy, but it didn't look like backpacking stuff, and it looked like it'd been there a while. We were thinking about waking up early this morning, but we got 25 miles to the road. We're just gonna see how close we can get. We heard from our friend Shotgun there's probably trail magic today, 15 miles into our day, so that definitely might slow us down, and we'll see. That's all for now. The night before, we'd ran into Shotgun, who told us Guru would be at a road up ahead with trail magic. That kept us going for most of the morning, and we arrived for a late lunch of grilled cheese and extra water. We had 12 miles to town, and we were on the fence about making it the whole way, but ultimately, we decided to hike fast and hard to beat the sunset and hopefully get a hitch. Despite keeping a good pace, I still fell behind the group and didn't catch Napoleon and Kid at the road until the sun was setting. We got lucky, and a car pulled over just before dark. We zeroed in Helena and tried all the food we'd been reading about on a very elaborate far-out comment. We even treated ourselves to an Uber to Buffalo Wild Wings. We knew of a shuttle driver to get back to the pass from Helena, and I was in no rush to leave the next morning. We scheduled the shuttle and went to get bagels and coffee before heading out of town. Just got a ride back to trail from Helena, Montana, and I am obsessed with these Montana towns. Helena was so cute. Of course I did not take enough videos, or any maybe, but I really liked it there. A lot of beautiful old buildings. We were staying pretty close to downtown. There's also like this great public transit app if you're not needing to get anywhere by a specific time, which I know it doesn't sound convenient, but when you're a thru hiker it's fine. And it's like 89 cents to basically like hail a bus. It's kind of like Uber, but publicly funded to some extent, I guess. We took a zero. We can probably zero in basically every town. We only have 2 towns left at this point, like Augusta and East Glacier, so things are going fast. We'll probably finish around the 18th or 19th. It's like the 2nd right now, and that's if we go slow and take zeros. And I'm not really ready for this trail to be over. It just feels like it happened all of a sudden, that we're almost done. And at the same time, I am ready for normal life routines and getting back to some of my other projects and things, but yeah, it feels like it went super fast. Hopefully it doesn't snow on us in Glacier. Thinking we might get a dusting or 2. Hopefully no substantial amounts though. And that's kind of okay with me. Yeah, we are gonna stop at an Outfitters. It's like right off trail in 2 days, so we got pretty light packs leaving town, except for that I have 3 liters of water right now. And then we'll resupply there, do another 4 days to Augusta, where we'll drop off Brandon, who's visiting for this section and the last section. And then after Augusta, we've got about 120 miles, I think, to East Glacier. And then it's East Glacier to the border. And only about 100 miles to the border. So let's go. I passed some construction and had a brief chat with the guy driving the excavator about the hike. After about 4 miles, Kid and Brandon, aka Storytime, caught up with me. About a mile later, we got to a water cache and I decided to stop for lunch while the others hiked on. I caught them again when they stopped to eat, an embodiment of the never-ending thru-hiker game of leapfrog. We took an alternate to shorten our water carry and ran into the professor, a calendar year triple crowner who confirmed there was indeed water on the alts. We soaked our feet in the creek and filled up, expecting that we might dry camp that night. The alternate contained some confusing intersections, and luckily Napoleon had Jonathan Leah's maps with more details than our topos. Storytime taught us all about cows as we walked, and it was interesting getting to know a little bit more about the creatures we shared so much of the trail with. When we finally reunited with the official CDT, we decided to camp since it was already getting dark. We hung our food and hoped the water we were counting on the next morning would actually be there. 2 bear hangs, going pretty well. Pretty proud of mine. That's definitely 4 feet off and 10 feet up. Josh's is a little closer, but I think it's still 4 feet off. Working on securing the rope right now. Brandon just threw his line and is now attaching his bags. Yeah, there are 2. Cautions of packing out bagels, I guess. Yeah, these are 2 days. 2 days food carries. With all our other smellables. And truly it's more than 2 days. Okay, so now Brandon's pulling his bag up. There, that's definitely 10 feet off the ground. And so now he can secure the other end of his rope. We skipped breakfast and coffee so we could have it at water. On my way to the spring, I noticed a CDT sign that went blatantly off trail, and so I chose not to follow it. Kid and Storytime, however, did, and ended up a mile into a reroute before eventually turning around. It turned out if they'd gone just a little farther, they would have reconnected with the actual trail. Even with their lengthy detour, they caught me at the spring anyway. We discovered it was no longer flowing, but there was still water in a metal cistern that was also home to a dead mouse. High Roller fished it out, and we took turns leaning way over to retrieve water. As we all filled our bottles with the dead mouse water, the cistern's levels dwindled, and by the end, Storytime had to hold my feet in order to keep me from falling in as I filled up. I don't have the upper body strength for that. After filling enough water for a 20-mile carry and chugging 1 or 2 liters to rehydrate, we hiked on. I was coming up quite a significant climb, and just before the top, I see a brown butt running away. It was a bear, not a very big one, and running away too fast for me to tell if it was truly a grizzly or not. Could have just been a light colored black bear, but it was thick, and yeah, it was not far either, like maybe 20 yards ahead of me. Gonna try and be making more noise, that's for sure. Our goal for the day was to reach an outfitter where we could camp, use a spigot, and get a partial resupply. I won't share much about it at the request of the owner, but if you're hoping to hike the CDT, you'll know when you get there, and it's definitely worth a stop. I just made it up. Pretty steep climb. And it is hot today, and it's exposed, hence the bandana on my head. And yeah, it's gonna be a tough day. We've got like almost 5,000 feet of gain, and I've already done, hold on, let me check my watch. Yeah, like almost 3,000 feet in under 10 miles. Yikes. I had lunch with a beautiful view and drank most of my water. Luckily, I exchanged intel with some section hiking southbounders who told me about a shortcut with water, and I did the same for them. Very early into the shortcut, I ran into a second bear. This one was definitely a black bear and seemed to give absolutely zero fucks that I was coming his way. So I slowed down and stopped yelling because that just seemed to make him turn toward me. Eventually, he meandered into the woods and I stayed loud for the rest of the way to the outfitters. The climb up looked steep, but it wasn't too bad, and I set up camp before grabbing a Powerade and a fancy meal. Read Backpacker's Pantry Chili. We ran into many friends, including Snail Trainer, and even met a new northbounder. In the morning, we maintained a leisurely pace. We were in no rush to leave. I resupplied and made coffee and chatted before deciding to get a move on. I left around 9 and ended up having to ask Kid to bring me an extra liter of water because I'd miscalculated the distance to our next source. Soon after reaching the pass, Storytime realized his wallet was missing. He and Kid went back to get it while I hiked on with a plan to meet them at water in 12.4 miles. The water was off trail, of course, and after a brief detour, we found it and ate lunch. When we made our way back up to Flesher Pass, we ran into some guys on an elk hunt, and one turned out to be the same excavator driver I had met walking out of Helena. They gave us all bush lights, and the buzz gave us the push we needed to start the 3,000-foot climb that preceded our 13-mile afternoon. That afternoon and evening was some of the best ridge walking I've had the privilege of experiencing. Even through smoky skies, the landscape unfurled in front of us and glowed marvelously in the setting sun. The trees showed evidence of enduring sustained winds, and in a way their permanent tilt was comforting, a sign that we weren't enduring a particularly windy day, but rather experiencing the ridge in its natural state, sturdy despite the constant assault from the westerly wind. It made me feel that if the trees could hold roots, then we could move through. The night before, we arrived at a highway-side parking lot with a bear box, pit toilet, and a creek. True thru-hiking luxury. When we woke up, I took advantage of the pit toilet and the trash can before beginning another huge climb. At the top, there was a yurt that was open to the public and offered some relief from the wind. We also hit some surprise water about 6 miles into our day, which prompted an early lunch. My stove was broken, so I took advantage of being with Kid and cooked with his. Post-lunch was more of the same. Up and up and up. I was feeling especially wiped, and checked my Garmin to see how far we'd come. Only 10 miles, but already at 5,000 feet of gain. No wonder I was so exhausted. At the top of ridges, we were noticing large plumes of smoke in the distance. We constantly checked for updates on nearby fires on all the typical websites, but couldn't find anything, so we hiked on, hoping they were farther off than they looked. We started to discuss camping early at our next water source, only 18 miles into the day. We were all tired enough from the wind and vert that it didn't take long for all of us to cave. Our water, which was another 0.2 off trail, came with company, a family of deer who did not seem put off at all by our presence. We camped next to a dry lake with the second calendar year triple crowner that we had met. We woke up early to make up for stopping early the night before. Our goal was to hike at least 28 miles since we only had 2 major climbs left and the rest of our day looked flat and downhill. I was ravenous and began going through my food bag with no regard for my future self. After lunch, we decided to aim for 3 miles per hour all afternoon, so Kid, Storytime, and I walked together and tried to keep pace. We passed yet another calendar year Triple Crowner who warned us of a dead horse in the bob and assured us the fires that had been looming didn't pose a threat to us yet. We arrived at camp and crossed a creek to reach the flat spots. Ollie, High Roller, Napoleon, Kid, Storytime, and I had dinner together once again and hung our food by the light of our headlamps. The next morning, there was even more smoke, and we decided to take a shorter, less steep alternate to our trailhead destination. The shortcut was incredibly cruisy, and Kid, Storytime, and I hiked together the whole way. They both gave me extra snacks to hold me over and keep me happy until we got to town. Thank God. In town, we booked a large Airbnb with plans to split it amongst several hikers. The house was in a perfect location and made for one of our best zeros yet. We also discovered the fire we'd been concerned about was just one ridge over from the CDT, and the alt that we took into town had been designated an official reroute, a narrow miss that we were very grateful for.